Apparently, Oscar Piastri's penalty isn't as unanimous as some people make it seem. Let's talk about this now. Hello, Risaka Motor friend, welcome to another video. I'm Matheus Pucci. We have quite a problem here regarding Oscar Piastri's penalty at the São Paulo Grand Prix. In the video I commented on, we went through the onboards. I said I wouldn't give a penalty and that I think this kind of penalty in a racing battle is absurd. Some people disagree, and that's fine. We have this space to debate. But I'm going to insist on this point now because we have some interesting information about it. So I'm going to start with Piastre's own perspective. And remember, the source is always in the description. For you guys, Oscar Piastri says the usual. He saw a gap and put himself in that gap. He burned out the tire. But McLaren itself, even with telemetry data, showing it to the stewards, attributes the following. The lockup stays the same, Piastre's line. He stays on the inside without even going off the track or gaining any kind of advantage. So, he keeps the line he would keep even if he hadn't locked up the tires. Maintaining that line is fundamental, and he was there in a three-car battle. When overtaking, remember, Antonelli was the one being overtaken, not Piastri. McLaren defended their driver as expected, but it made no difference. Nothing changed. When the guys asked the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile to review it, it hugely impacts the World Championship, as we know. But Piastre's point is valid. We should take into account the perspective of the driver involved. And in a little while, I'll get into the merits of the rule itself, about why having so many rules isn't always a good thing. But being on the inside, making an overtake in the S, as we've seen countless times, there's nothing wrong with that. Since he keeps his line close to the white line and doesn't change his trajectory, locking up wouldn't have changed the outcome given how things happened. For me, that's more than enough to see that the excuse about locking up the tire doesn't hold up. And McLaren is right to have this telemetry in their hands. Now let's hear Charles Leclerc's opinion, the guy who ended up losing out in this battle. He wasn't involved, but still lost out. Leclerc says Kimi Antonelli knew Piastri was inside. So, even if they weren't perfectly side by side, you can't take the corner as if there was nobody there. That's Leclerc's opinion, and I told you that in that other video. Antonelli takes the corner as if the other car isn't there. I think Antonelli is more at fault than Piastri. Even though I wouldn't penalize him, Antonelli cuts off Piastri in a way that was totally unnecessary. Since Leclerc was far from the apex of the corner, Piastri could have been given more space by Antonelli, but Antonelli didn't do that. He takes the corner like no one else is there, then contact happens. That's why I say this. Lock up or not, the result would be unchanged. Piastri would take the same line, and Antonelli would still approach him the same way. And that's Leclerc's view as well. Antonelli throws the car in, taking the corner as if no one else is there. Leclerc goes on to say that he doesn't think Piastri deserved all the blame. It was unfortunate, but he shouldn't be punished so harshly. According to the article in Formula One's technical analysis, this is the case. It's a common opinion among directors and some engineers in the paddock. So, even without mentioning names, we know that necessarily the paddock, or a good part of the paddock, is with Leclerc. When it comes to not punishing Piastri, or saying that he wasn't fully to blame for the incident. It's something that needs to be thought about, needs to be reviewed, because in no way can it be normalized. Antonelli doesn't necessarily have an official statement on the matter here, but we have some very interesting points to discuss. The article points out that, for example, Leclerc's reading shows a much more complex picture of what happens on the track than simply the literal wording of a regulation. In the regulations, you have a series of rules, and look, it's not just one, but a series. As I mentioned before, we have a video coming about overtaking and rules in Formula One, but you have several problems, in which every single move is programmed, every single move is calculated by the regulations, and you are liable to punishment if you don't follow the exact rule book. That's a huge problem. The stewards strictly enforced regulations. But the reality on the track, as is often mentioned even in the article, is much more complex than what can be described in a regulation. The regulations consider every detail. If you're here or there and you move to the side with three cars, one is here and the others are there. It ignores the dynamics and the driver's mindset in the moment, The driver will try a switchback, dive in, and defend on both sides. It doesn't consider that. It simply turns it into a slot car race. That's what's been happening since the introduction of drag reduction system, which I tell you about here very often. We've held slot car races since 2011. Battles outside drag reduction system may result in penalties. It's very hard for Formula One to investigate a more complex maneuver. It's become ridiculous. You can't really have any real battles anymore. Formula One is becoming a hostage to the rules it created itself. There are too many restrictions in a very complex system. You should simplify it. And remember, many times, crash incidents are interpretative and not objective. That needs to be clear as well. Formula One is managing to take the spontaneity out of the battles, reducing everything to bureaucratic decisions. As Xander Arcari perfectly wrote in the article, overtaking has become bureaucracy. Pulling alongside, you'd need a tape measure to see how far the car and the guy are from you at 300 km/h. Having to do that, it took away the human factor, the normal wheel-to-wheel racing. For me, that's really serious. Let's look at a few more examples here. You probably remember that Daniel Ricciardo used to make those beautiful dive bomb moves, right? Those overtakes and dives, after he was penalized, if I recall correctly, when he was at Renault. How often did you see Daniel Ricciardo do that? He messed up the dive and got penalized. How often did you see Daniel Ricciardo repeat that? You can count them on your fingers, if there are any to count. It took away the driver's ability to risk a maneuver. Several drivers have said in interviews that they avoid risks out of fear of penalties. And the drivers know that penalties are being handed out left and right. That's why, when their opponent puts a tire on the line, they instantly radio to complain, knowing even small things now result in penalties. Overtook on the grass. Penalty. The grass already makes the guy lose speed. If he's overtaking you on the grass, it's because you're being extremely incompetent at what you're doing. The guy pulled up, can't do that. Put the tire on the curb, can't do that. Even a normal touch, can't do that. Just don't hand trucks to the guys and let them race. But Formula One has a huge difficulty in being the top of motorsport in what really matters, which is wheel-to-wheel racing. There's so much bureaucracy, so many little rules that have been created over the past few years, so many appendices, so many openings here and there, that in the end, overtaking can only happen on a straight. With drag reduction system, it's allowed. Otherwise, it's not. Julianne Serrazoli is going to say something interesting about this topic in her video on YouTube, or maybe it was on Twitter. I can't remember right now. It's strange to have different parameters for the start and the restart. The parameter that Formula One used was different. The way they penalized Piastre then, it was because they had penalized Stroll, for example. But I really don't think you can expect coherence and consistency in something that's been going on for years with the public, a good portion of the public. People act like anyone who overtakes deserves a penalty. Share your opinion in the comments, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Big hug, thanks, see ya.